Hi guys, a little bit of sort of yellowy light this morning just because it's a little bit gloomy outside. Also, if you hear sort of like little noises, my cat's been munching away at his biscuits and sort of wandering around, so those are probably some of the background noises if you hear any of those. It's been a while since I sat in front of the camera. I've done a few films of me going through like journals and looking at my planner and face down videos. So today I just wanted to do like a little bit of a vlog, a bit of a chat, just to I guess get back into the swing of doing sitting in front of the camera and actually talking to you guys, just because it has been a little while. So I'm not going to go through some really in-depth discussion or like a review or anything too deep. Today I'm going to just go through a little bit of it's going to be a little bit of a recap of January and how I feel the depth year is going for me so far, and some of the things that I've been up to this month so far, since we are nearly at the end of January now. First of all, my journal, my planner is going really well. I finally managed to put the decorations in for the dividers, which is good. My calendar, I feel like my calendar is going really well. So you can see, hang on, there we go, that's probably better. What I've done is I've put the tarot card for the day. I've also done a color code depending on what suit it is. I've noted down any of the moon phases. I've also got the astrological sign of the phase of the moon. However, I haven't been studying that, and I've also got like a little leaflet to tell me what symbol's what, since I'm pretty new to it. At the moment, I haven't really been sort of studying in depth the astrology behind that, so I'm thinking I've already drawn up, I think, February, so I'll just leave that go. But if I don't start looking into it, I'll probably just leave this off the calendar, because at the moment I'm not looking at it in that level of detail, so it's a little bit distracting for no reason at the moment. And there's been a couple of times where I've got the sign wrong and I've had to go and white it out, so at the moment that's something I'm not using. I've also noticed that using colours to mark the days off is also a little bit distracting. It takes away from the colour coding of the suits, so next time if I mark them off, I'll just use like a black pen or grey or something that sort of blends in, so that what stands out is literally the suit colours, so that I've got a little bit of a pattern there. But overall, I'm really happy with how this has worked. So in terms of like the moon phases and like tracking my menstrual cycle as well, that's going really well. I've continued on with the layout that I had last month, so the only thing that's really changed is that I no longer draw the actual moon phase, but I've been putting in the percentage of the fullness of the moon, and I've been trying to, well, so far, obviously we're not too far into the year, I've been trying to work with the phases of the dark or new moon and the full moon, so setting my intentions based on what phase of the moon it's in. Something else as well, I did speak in a previous video that I had two books that I'd purchased for January and February. I'm currently reading the Paganism book, and that is, I didn't anticipate that it would be as slow as it has been, but it's quite it's a workbook. It's not a textbook, but it's something that you want to sit down and you want to journal about, and there are activities in there, and you really want to make sure that you've got a little bit of time to really dedicate towards it. It's not something where you can just sort of sit down for 5 minutes and have a bit of a flick through. I find that I really want to take some time to do a bit of a study of a chapter. So at the moment I'm only up to chapter 2, so I didn't anticipate that I would be as slow as I have been. So I think I'll still continue to let myself purchase a book a month. Whether I read that book or not, that's fine. At least I will know I've got, in case something is a really quick read, I'll know that I've got the ability to then go ahead and read something else. So in a previous depth year update, I told you guys that I had received the Australian Druidry book. And that I was really excited to read it, and I am still really excited to read it. But what I've decided to do is I've decided to leave this book till nearly the end of the year, and the reason that I'm going to do that is because I'm going to take my tarot card of the year, the Hierophant, into consideration, and I'm going to look at the traditional systems and structures of the Wheel of the Year. Obviously I'm going to reverse it for the Southern Hemisphere, so I am going to do that, make that change, but I'm going to look at all of the different Sabbats and look at the themes and the ways in which people generally, or the themes that people, I suppose, generally use in order to create their own sort of celebrations or rituals. And I'm going to sort of do the same. This book does discuss the Wheel of the Year, and it discusses the, I guess, the problems or the things that might come up with taking a system and transplanting it to a completely different like environment and location. I don't want that to color my perception as I'm sort of going through this. So what I've done is I went ahead and I purchased the Lunar Abundance book by Ozzie Spencer. This is one that was on my to read list, to buy list, and is going to further my knowledge on the moon phases. But of course I'm going to finish reading the Paganism book first. I'm going to do one at a time. I'm really excited. This is the I believe this is the international or the US version of the book. I don't think there's much difference. I think the main differences is some of the the cover art, for example, and some of the images, but I don't think the content is changed in any way. But for example, there's some really beautiful something I didn't expect was I thought it would be a book that was just mainly text and some diagrams of the moon, but there's some really pretty pictures in here, and I guess it's like a nice break between the information. And also I didn't realize that there's also space to fill in, to do exercises and actually fill them in, which I probably won't do in this book. I'll probably just use like rough paper, but good to know that, you know, that's an option there as well. So, and good that it sort of looks like it'll be you'll have lots of time to sort of like pause and reflect and I guess document your learnings about it. So I'm really excited to read that, but I probably won't be starting to read that at least until February/March, depending on how quickly I get through the Paganism book. That doesn't mean I'm not reading. I am reading fiction books as well, just as normal. I just go to the library and pick anything that I think looks interesting. So that doesn't mean that I'm only reading, you know, one book every couple of months. So I'm still allowing myself all of the fiction books as normal, so just not purchasing them. Something else I did in January's full moon is I did a gratitude ritual. Previously I thought of the full moons as an excellent time to do like a spell or like a charm or some sort of energy working, and a lot of the information on the internet, usually I'm talking about sort of like really like, you know, like pop sort of websites, and that mentions that, you know, the full moon is an excellent time, it's super powerful, and it's an excellent time for doing this and this and X and Y and Z, but not many of them mention that you can sort of just do like a gratitude ritual and just, you know, maybe set your intentions on the new or the dark moon, and I'm thinking that that is something I want to continue doing, so setting intentions and I guess creating the new in the dark moon, and then at the full moon just having it like a gratitude practice instead of starting something else or focusing on something else. So that's something that I think I'll be doing going forward. And I've also been looking into the idea of mala beads or prayer beads, or you may also know them from a Catholic context as the rosary. Now, I don't have a Catholic upbringing, so it's not something that I've ever really connected with, from the perspective of using them as like a focus sort of tool and a meditation while you're doing like a gratitude practice, is something that I think is like pretty powerful, and it's something that I want to explore. I decided to incorporate sort of like a mala bead practice in my January full moon at the very last minute, so I didn't really have the time to go and get anything, or like get, you know, like a sort of like a bead necklace from a secondhand store or anything like that. So I just made do with what I had. So I had this little crystal bracelet. It's just a Swarovski bracelet, and I just used that as I was going along. I know it's quite short, so I just basically did a couple of rounds, and I wasn't particularly concerned with the color change, or doing anything specific for any of the different colors. So that worked quite well. I think what I probably will do at some point is either have a look in some secondhand stores for some bead necklaces and repurpose one in that way, or potentially I might look into making my own mala bead, mala necklace, I'm not sure how you call them, as a bit of a craft and a spiritual project. So I might look into doing that in the future, but for now, that worked sufficiently, and it was very much a sort of make do with what you have, so I was really happy with that. So as for tarot, so the tarot section, I finally got around to decorating this as well. This came out of a previous journal. I've been pulling a tarot card a day from the Steampunk Tarot at the moment. I'm thinking what I might do is, I only have 2 tarot decks anyway, but what I might do is I might give it 6 months on the Steampunk Tarot and then 6 months on my other deck, so that I really get a feel for the imagery in it, and I get used to I suppose the clues and the codes in the different decks. At the moment I'm thinking that the Steampunk Tarot does I can sort of look at a card and see the clues a lot, or the meaning, or the artist's meaning, a lot easier than I can with my other tarot deck, which is the Shadowscapes Tarot. So I thought I'd start off with the Steampunk Tarot and really get into that. So I've just been drawing a card a day, and the question has been very similar, just sort of, what is coming up today? What is the energy for today? I've also I've started doing some notes. So obviously the Major Arcana, the Kings, the suits, numerology, more information on the suits, and a reading technique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, things are falling out everywhere. I'm going to be journaling about each of the cards. This is going to take me quite a while. I haven't set a specific time frame, so it's just as I get around to it, or as I want to delve into each of the different cards. So I've started with the Fool. I'm going to go in chronological order, and I'm going to, so for example here I've done some information about the Fool card, and I'm going to either do an image or find an image that represents the energy or the meaning of the card for me. Now in this instance I've used pop culture, so you can see I've done a picture of Disney's Pocahontas, and the reason I chose this particular image and this particular scene was, so if you're familiar with the Disney Pocahontas, this is where we are, I suppose, introduced to Pocahontas. She has just been told that she's expected to marry one of the men of her tribe, and she's wondering, should she do as expected, or, is there more adventure for her? Is there something, bigger, or she's not sure that she's ready to take that path. She wants to know what's around the river bend, for example. And she ends up on this really tall cliff, and she's got her faithful companions with her, and I suppose this time for her really symbolizes the journey before the first step is taken. So she's optimistic. She has yet to really begin her adventure here, and she represent so she's looking off into the distance into an adventure. Maybe Disney's Pocahontas might not have been your experience, but what I'm doing is I'm really thinking about maybe images from my childhood, or popular images that resonate with me. So I may take from different series and really sort of get into that energy of the card. I really, this is just something that really popped out at me when I was thinking about that journey, and just that image of her. She's so like vibrant and optimistic, and she's at the start of her journey, and you know, she's got no baggage and no not previous experience, but she's a little bit sort of like young and naive in that way. She has yet to go out into the world, and you know, like, she doesn't really have any of her possessions on her, all of this sort of stuff. So that's the reason that I chose that image for the Fool. So I'm going to continue on in that vein and think about some of the different like popular culture figures and stories that really represent the cards for me, just so that I can really relate the energy of the card to, like, and I have a strong I guess understanding based on my own like personal experience. And for example, Disney, they won't all be Disney, but that's just something that I really grew up with. I watched a ton of Disney movies over and over and over, so it's very clear in my mind. So that's the reason that I chose that. I obviously went on a huge tangent there. The other thing I suppose I wanted to talk about is the fact that Lughnasadh is coming up for us here in the Southern Hemisphere. What I've done is I've started drawing up information about Lughnasadh, and so like the mythology behind it, how people historically in that area used to sort of like celebrate, like sort of what sort of the themes were. And so I've started writing information up, and then that obviously took me to having a little bit of information about the god involved and his foster mother. So I have a bit of an understanding of sort of where it came from and all that sort of thing. I was thinking of, because bread and grains and that symbolized that particular season, I was thinking of maybe making a bannock, and then I just had some information about, you know, how I think I might want to sort of celebrate or recognize the actual Sabbath. I might do like a separate little video about like my thoughts on it, and you know, also afterwards I guess what came up for me, things that I really connected with and things that I didn't connect with, and I guess learnings basically. So I'm going to be doing that. One of the main things that strikes me at the moment, and it's probably just a geographical difference, this talks very much about I suppose the first harvest of the year, and the fact that there's lots of like fruits and berries and things, whereas I suppose for us at the moment, we've had, like, it definitely is in our first harvest. We've had so many, so even before Christmas, we had a ton of like berries and like fruits and like an abundance of vegetables and stone fruits in season. So it's not quite in terms of like I suppose the harvest, like festivals, that sort of thing. It sort of doesn't quite match up there, and a lot of the celebrations involve obviously being out in nature, you know, enjoying the day in the sun. That is something that I'm going to be watching the weather, because at the moment the weather has been in the high 30s to 40s. So we've had this weekend, for example, we have 3 days of 40, this is Celsius, so 3 days of 41 degrees. So being outside in the middle of the day, or like at any time other than early in the morning or late at night, is something that you probably don't want to do. So that's something else that I'm sort of going to have to think about, and I guess figure out how I can connect with the idea of this Sabbath, but maybe have a look at a more Australian context. So anyway, that's probably something I'll sort of reflect more on in another video. So I might leave that there for today. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in another video. Bye!